Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the Moving Spotlight podcast. My name is John Ruby, and I'm here with
Corbin Coyle. Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone. Good morning, Corbin. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I got a good night's sleep. I got to
Yep.
just wake up. It's nice out. Yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, so it's just been nice. I didn't wear any green. Wearing green today,
Oh,
though, ironically.
yes. I when I used to live in Chicago, it was cool. They dye the river green.
Oh,
They
that
put a
is
little,
really cool.
yeah,
How do they
isn't that
do
neat?
that without harming every fish in the whole world?
Everything died. It was all dead. At the end, they're just dead fish floating on the surface. Didn't matter. It looked cool. Who cares
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
fish?
yeah.
Just kidding. I do care about the fish. It didn't harm the fish, everyone. Okay, so today we got a special episode. I want to jump right into it. This is what we're calling Acting 101, or it might be a different name, but that's what I'm calling it right now. And we're going to be talking about self-tapes. For all the actors out there, this is a big, big thing, especially with the pandemic and everything. Self-tapes were around before that, not as popular as they are now. I don't think they're going anywhere for a while. And I just want to chat, Corbin, discuss kind of the idea of self-tapes, how you approach them, how I approach them, and then a little bit later on, what equipment we specifically use. We've got some good recommendations and suggestions for people. So, Corbin, have you been finding that self-tapes have been on an uptick for you just overall?
For sure. Yeah, it's just basically all I do now is self tape, and then the callback is in person. So it's just kind of
Yeah.
more that is the world that I think we're in for a very long time. I think it makes the most sense for everybody. I think people can get more submissions. You can see more actors. You can also not leave your house, which is great. You can work more flexible jobs. I think it's just more important to have self tapes, and I hope it keeps staying around. To be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I mean, I on the from the casting side, when we're doing castings, it's great because yeah, all the submissions kind of come to us, makes it easy on our end. But and then on the actor side, it is kind of can be a pain in the butt to set everything up, but also, you can do multiple takes if you want. You can be traveling and still submit, which is
Hmm.
great. So there's definitely more flexibility with self tapes. I think one of the things that comes up a lot, just to walking you through the self tape, a lot of times it's like the slate, it's a full body, and then it's the action. And people always say, "How am I supposed to do a full body?"
For sure. Yeah.
It's such a pain for people that know this world. And what I say is really the main reason they want to see full body is they just want to see that, your shape matches somewhat, because in a headshot, they're not getting that. So
Hmm.
they just want to know what your shape is. Are you in shape? Are you, a little more average shape? They just want to know so they have an idea
Hmm.
because they can't see that in the headshot. And so as long as it's not crazy distracting, I know when people are in smaller places, it's hard, but at least if there's like minimal stuff, it's okay if they see more of your apartment. That's not really what they're not looking at, that, or they shouldn't be, because that can be a really challenging thing to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. I just have a simple background, and the thing I like to do if it's both a slate and a full body is edit it where it's like side by side. So I'll do a horizontal filming of each, and then just makes it a little bit easier because they're not going to watch me do the whole moving and doing all this stuff. They just want to see it for a second. So I'm like,
Yep.
here it is, the whole thing. If you can pick whatever moment you want to look at it, but here's also me talking, and this is my name, this is my rep, this is all my things
So you have them play simultaneously.
simultaneously right next to
Yeah.
each other. So I just crop it in the editing, and it's just pretty easy.
Great. I love that. And the other thing with it is, I know this makes sense, but look at the instructions because everyone
Yes,
sends out different
that's true.
self-tape instructions. That's one thing I've found over and
Yeah.
over again. Like they're all very different.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them you have to fill out a form online and then also send in your self-tape. Some of them say put your slate at the end. Some of them say, we need this, this, and this.
Mhm.
And I
Even
think it's
even the file name can be like specific too.
even the file name can be
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a great point. Even the file name can be specific. The other thing I just suggest, we're talking about slate, full body, and then your takes for people that are familiar with like Actors Access, you can, and they might ask for this, all of it together. You can also separate out those files. So you can put your slate, your slate and full body, and then take one, take two, take three. And the reason that's nice is, let's say take one, they don't love what you did, but they love take two and take three. That's easier for them to like pass along than if it's all one thing and they have to like try to go edit it out and there's not always time for
Mhm.
that. Does
That's
that
really
make
smart.
sense?
I've actually never done that before, but it's really smart. I like that. I always, edit at the end. I always put my slate at the very end because I want to get into the acting. They don't care about me particularly. So it's just I want to get to the
Yeah.
acting. This is what I can do. This is what I'm bringing. But no, I've never thought of putting the slate separate. Might as well. Actors Access allows you to. You can drop as many files as you want in there. Like, might as well
Ex-
do it. Yeah.
Totally. So you can definitely do that. Like I said, unless they ask for something specific. And also, with the slate, it's interesting. I mean, for those that do know or don't know, slates are usually pretty simple. It's like your name, where you're located. A lot of times they're asking now if you're vaccinated. Um, and one of the things I like to try to do, if there's any room, is give a little bit of personality that fits the character you're playing.
Mm.
So all I mean by that is like if you're playing a real like serious like mob boss, don't be all smiley in your slate.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that's my thought on it. And so you don't have to be like in character. You are saying your own name, but if you can kind of lean yourself towards the energy of that person,
Mhm.
um, or even I think sometimes it's like if you can take a chance if you're playing someone who's like, let's say they're a smart ass, we'll have a little something fun at the end of your slate,
Yeah.
like it just gives them a little taste of your personality and energy. Even though the acting I think is way, way more important. There's kind of a reason it's on there, and it's just one more a little bit more extra time they get to spend with you that they don't get in the room anymore,
For sure. I mean, I think we just get lost in like, I want them to like me. It's like, it's
Yes.
an interview. And it's like, no, just still be the person, just still be the character. Because it's kind of jarring to be like, hi, I'm Corbin. After like
Yeah.
doing like a crying scene or something, Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep it in that same the same mode. Corbin, any other questions or thoughts when you think about self tapes now? And I was also just going to say, load up that question with readers, folks.
Hmm.
I know this can be a challenge for everybody, and like there's different things out here. We're not sponsored by them, but We Audition is a great place if you want to find a
Mhm.
reader. If you can find someone that is an actor, in person, I always think it's great to like offer it. So you've offered it and you can be a reader for them, and then you can ask for that favor back. It's like rides to
Mhm.
the airport. You don't want to ask too many times in a row without giving
Yeah.
back. But it's not it's not imperative that the reader be good, but it can really, really help. And I think, a lot of times maybe who we have around us is relatives or friends or family. And if they're not actors, it can throw you off a little bit. It can also be what's necessary. If it's like,
Mhm.
well, this is all I've got to do it this way. You can do it through Zoom. I've done that. I've coached people where I'm reading through Zoom. The only thing sometimes is then the sound is a little bit tingy for the reader because it's going through a computer, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not always ideal,
Yeah. I try to keep that to a minimal, like, I don't know. You learn by just doing it too. So like, I use We Audition a lot too, and it can be a little even tingy from the reader side, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. Like, you just get used to that. But I don't think you should record through Zoom. I think you should just have your phone or like having some sort of actual external mic. I mean, I have an iPhone and it works really well. Like, I think it doesn't. I don't have any problems with audio from just like that generic sense. It does pick up everything. So if somebody's
Yeah.
walking outside my apartment, you just hear like clunk 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 clunk, and that's a little annoying. But other than that, I think
Well,
it's fine.
and the big, like there's beeping behind you right now, but
Hmm.
the less distracting in a self tape, that's really when I think about this stuff. So if the reader is not distracting, then it's fine.
Yeah.
If the image isn't distracting, then it's fine. Like if it's not, whatever, not that it'd be blurry, but like the less distractions with your background, things like that.
Hmm.
I think that's the big thing. You don't want them not focusing on your performance and, focusing on the sound of the reader, or what they can't quite hear or trying to hear,
Yeah,
with things like that.
what I always say is it's like you come in at 100 when you walk into that door, and everything starts docking you points from there. Like,
Yeah,
it really
yeah,
is just like,
yes,
how's your
yes.
performance? How do you look? How is there a garbage truck beeping in the background? Like, it's like random things like keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I think it's just good to know that they're on your side, but they're also like by nature judging the book by its cover. So you're just trying to figure out what if this person fit into the world that we're looking for. Are they professional? Do they have the things that I want? And I think that's really just what it comes down to.
And that's a challenging thing too now with self tapes, where if you're in the room, you get a redirect and they let you know. They say, hey, you're heading this direction. We want you
Mhm.
actually to go this direction. You don't have that right now with self tapes usually. So it's on the actor. And one of the things, I do talk about, Corbin, as you know, is like we have to kind of be directors in our minds. We have to be actors and
Mhm.
directors. Not that we are going to direct other people, but we have to direct ourselves. I think that's the big part of it with our choices. And I think there's a lot of space now with self tapes to make some like bolder choices, in the sense that they don't have, like, your first take and your second take shouldn't be very similar. They should be a little more variety, because they don't have a chance to say, oh, well, you're playing this person like they're really hurt, but actually they're really relishing that this happened. You know what I mean? And so if you just give them hurt twice in a row, they've kind of seen the same thing, versus if you give them hurt and relishing, then they're like, okay, I see this actor can do both those things. And this is actually what was in our head that maybe was translated on the page, but isn't always right there.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. That totally makes sense. I mean, it's just, you have to be the director, like you said. You have to know what is, and it takes a lot of scene analysis. You got to really dive in and realize and do research. You got to look up the people. That's actually my question. Like, how do you do your research? Like, do you just start looking up? Is there an order of people that you look up, or like a way to be able to know the world, or is it just kind of, yeah? How do you do it? How do you do the research?
Yeah. So what I would say 100%, like if the person who you're getting the self-tape from, if they've done other projects, it's always great to look them up because that can help you with tone. And it's at least a place to start. The research is never going to hurt you. It can only help, right? So spending a little bit of time looking up, let's say it's even like a commercial audition. You can find director agencies and you can find other spots they do. Some commercials really focus on like comedy. Like I'm just thinking of commercials right now to start. That's really dry.
Yeah.
So they don't want big over the top choices. They want everything very real, very dry. So you can see that from their other spots. Sometimes it's like there's something funny in the commercial. You don't have to be funny. So you just want to play it really straight. For TV shows, there's a lot of people that have made shows before. This is their fourth or fifth show. And you look at, okay, what else have they done? All right. They're always on these procedural type shows. That means if you're going to play a doctor, you need to be a very realistic doctor, and then with films, I think there's also some of that. Films can have a variety of feelings, but I definitely think that kind of getting a feel, if you can ask for the whole script, sometimes with film, they'll give you the whole script, and reading the whole script can really help. Oh, this is more of like a horror, psychological thriller than I thought based on the 3 pages I have or whatever. So I think finding that and trying to, and then you just have to kind of take your best, in a sense, educated guess. And what feels strongest to you. That's one thing I also really, really try to recommend, and urge my students and other actors is like, what feels true to like Corbin in this scene? Like what is Corbin really like kind of excited about, and really lean into that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, well, I'm trying to like kind of guess what they want. Well, factor that in. But, if Corbin really thinks, oh my gosh, this guy could be a really fun, just like jerk, then lean into that, because that's also where you're going to shine, when you really are like holding onto that role. And Corbin, don't you see when you can tell people connect with a role or not?
For sure. You can see the excitement in their eyes. You can see how much they enjoy diving into this character. Yeah. And I think it's just not worth muting yourself. Like you come to the table with these unique things. Sure, you want to be able to get the right stuff. That's why you do the research. That's why you do the work, is to try to figure out what the script's about. You can't just be like, it's going to be about bananas now. Like you can't just switch it up. But there are some fun moments, like you're saying, where you can tell somebody really likes it. And when they really like it, I think they're not as in their head about, because I think they start to assume, oh, I got this. I figured it out a long time ago. This script is fine. Even if they don't even realize they're making chances. They're taking great risks from there. It's always fun to watch. I love when people get a little fun with it.
Totally. And one of the other ways you get, besides the analysis, the other ways you get better at it is just the reps.
Yep.
I mean, when I started sending scenes to my students, it was like I was reading scene after scene after scene. And then when I would get stuff, I'd be like, oh, I know exactly what this is, because I've sent out 10 scenes like this, but it was like a forced way to be reading scenes, reading scripts, things like that. And so my point is, those reps, whether, you're getting it for yourself, whether it's a student film, whether it's a, Warner Brothers film, a Netflix show, the reps are really, really important. And I think that's another thing with self-tapes, where sometimes our energy can feel low, but every time you're doing those self-tapes, every time you're doing those reps, that's one of the ways you improve, because you're getting better and better and better. And it's hard. It's hard if you have one audition a month. Some people are like that. It's like, I got one audition. I'm like, well, then you need to maybe lower your sights, and because you should have 10 auditions a month, even if it's not the perfect stuff, even if you're not going to say, I can do all of it. Maybe you can't, but you got to be getting in those reps, and I think that's a really important thing with self-tapes, is like, I've had so many of them. I've coached so many of them. I know you've had a lot. It's like you get into the mode of it, even if you're like, oh God, another, like, I got to set everything up. I got to edit it. All that. But that's part of the work we have to put in. It's not always fun. There is definitely work involved, but you get better at it.
Yeah, it isn't always fun. The hardest part for me whenever I get a self-tape is the memorization portion. Like I always struggle with that for whatever reason. I just have never been good at memorizing lines. And that is, once I get over that hill though, it's
Yeah.
Wonderful. So like, I mean, every job it's work at the end of the day. So it's, if you, as
Yeah.
long as you like 75% of it, that's a win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if you like, for me, it's just getting over that first hump, kind of what you're talking about. It's getting those reps in, because the more I tried to memorize, the more I got better at memorizing, but it's still, that is the most exhausting part, especially when you get it at like 8 p.m. and it's due at 9 a.m. and you're just like, how do I usually take 2 days to memorize this. It's just, what do you do?
Totally. And
Yeah.
I was going to say that the turnaround for self-tape sometimes is kind of ridiculous, where they're like, you got it at night and maybe you have a job to do the next day and they're like, it's due tomorrow. That is really a pain. It is really a pain. And I don't think that's fair. And I hope, I think people are kind of working on things to make it a little, but sometimes stuff just happens last minute. That's also very much, and sometimes those are great opportunities. I did a commercial once where the main guy got double booked and then they called me as the backup, and it was a commercial that ran a bunch. So you never know, it can work both ways. But what I will say, Corbin, with what you said, the bar for where it used to be as far as being off book has changed, where it's like, you pretty much have to be off book, in my opinion. I say that and then people say, oh no, you don't have to be. I just see more and more people that are booking self tapes are off book. You got to have that discipline. It used to be you could have kind of the sides there, and probably in person you still can, but like with self tapes now, because you can do multiple takes of it, it's like you got to try your darndest. That's a non-swear. You got to try your darndest to get off book, and that can be challenging if it's a lot of pages, but it does free you up, but it is tough when it's like, I got limited time and I got to get this done. But I do think that's the bar now.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, one, the expectation, I think, from the casting side is to be off book now, because most 99% of people are. But two, I really, like you said, it frees me up. Like I can go anywhere if I'm off book. If you're reading it for the first time or the third time, I get it. You want to just kind of get it over with, especially if it's 9 p.m. and you've worked all day. But I don't know. I just don't think it's worth it at the end of the day. You just kind of have to put in that little work, and it's more fun. Like I said, once you get over, for me at least, once I get over that memorization portion, then I can get weird with it, and that's my favorite moment. Yeah, so I totally agree. Well, I kind of want to pivot over to all the equipment and stuff that you use.
Let's do it. Let's jump
curious,
into yes.
What do you have? Because I think we have the same lights, but that's I've only seen that portion of what you got, other than the mic and everything else I stole from you. But
Corbin's got my exact same setup. No, yours is different. Yours is different, and I like some of the stuff you have. But for my setup, what's really interesting is when the pandemic first started, and self tapes were picking up, I do have the nice. It's interesting. When I self tape at home, my wife is super fancy. And so she put up these little hooks. And so I have a huge blue backdrop that I put up every time and then roll it down. And then the nice thing about that is then I can roll that back up. And then the room we do that in can be like used for other things. So that's kind of nice, just like the hook system. So I've got a nice big, blue backdrop that I bought on Amazon. That's like a paper material that I just cut into the size. So I've got a nice backdrop that's really simple, and for whoever that is, you can find that. Like I said, mine's a nice big wide one, but I was just looking here, there's I think Amazon is a great place. There's other places to buy it, but like, any type of simple backdrop. And then, we were talking about the lights, which is the Neewer lights that I really like. And I had used two kind of really nice, the dimmable LED ones. But what's interesting is, we were starting to do so many self tapes, and those are kind of a pain for me to lug around and set up and take down. I just started using a Neewer ring light, and just really? throwing my camera there. And I was using microphones before, and now I was like, you know what? I just put my iPhone in the middle of the Neewer light. I put my backdrop up, I kind of block out the light so there's nothing like really bad. And then I just I edited on iMovie.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I need to have some sort of portable light system for sure.
And that was why we bought it, Corbin, is the Neewer one. I was looking it up. It's kind of nice because it fits into a bag, and so it's got the tripod stand, and then if you have your iPhone on you or Samsung, you can just carry that bag. And we do that because we'll do some like road trips and stuff. We'll throw it in the back with us, because that always inevitably happens as soon as you leave town. You get an audition, but it's a portable one, and the ring light really works. I think it works really, really well.
I think so too. Yeah, I think it's I was just telling somebody the other day, it's like you can tell when somebody has a ring light, you can see it in their eye, but I think people don't care anymore. Like it's just kind of just, oh, you look good and you're using a ring light. It's the
They've
only
gotten so used to it. And the only thing I'd say with that is have a big enough ring light that you can move around.
yes.
Right. So some people I think have like a desk ring light or a small one, and
Mhm.
it doesn't, you don't want to be like right next to it. You really want to make sure you try to give yourself, if you have the space. So if the audition has, movement or whatever, it gives you a bit of flexibility. So you're not just stuck in one little frame.
For sure. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
What else do you use? Do you use a mic or anything, or do you just use your iPhone?
So that's what I was saying. So I just used, I had bought a little mic that plugs into my iPhone, and I just used the microphone on the iPhone. And then for people that don't know, on iMovie, because we live near pretty much a freeway, like sometimes there'll be like a car driving by real quick.
Mm.
There is an option on iMovie that dims the background noise, and you can pick the
Huh.
percentage. So if that happens on a really good take, because for people that know when you have a really good take and then something happens like that, it's really frustrating. You can increase reducing the background noise. So it can kind of block
That's
out a
cool.
bit of that sound. And it's not a really difficult thing on iMovie. You can just it's
Just
like
toggle it on, basically.
just
Yeah.
toggle it on, and then you can change the percentage. So you can go
Mm.
like all the way up to like 90%, but it changes then your own voice. But I've just been using the iPhone mic for self tapes.
That's great. Yeah, yeah. I've used Filmic Pro before, that app with a Shure mic. I don't know if it's worth it though. It's like, I mean, it's not that expensive. I think it's like $15 or something. But to me, it's just you can add, because you can't really add the mic without that app because the iPhone
Yeah.
camera doesn't pick it up. But to
Yes.
me, it's just there's some weird thing when I was using it, the audio would cut out, and it was just the fact that it wasn't reliable drove me nuts. I was like, that's not a good tool
That,
then.
I have that same Shure mic that plugs in,
Hmm.
and I bought Filmic Pro. My problem was it was always recording really quietly, and I'm sure there's other ways, but
Mm-hmm.
it seemed too complicated, especially if I was like dealing with like I needed someone else recording and I wanted to make sure everything was smooth.
Yes.
And the other thing I'll say, this is really interesting for people, I think. Probably not. It's interesting for me. When I do it on my iPhone, a lot of times I do it so I can see what's on the camera, because I'll do it like by myself, like for
Oh,
the
you mean you
slate.
face it
So
towards you?
I face it towards me,
Hmm.
which can
I do that
throw a
too.
lot of people off. You got to kind of get used to that, if that makes sense. So you're seeing yourself, even though you're not looking at yourself, you're seeing yourself, and you kind of got to be able to block that out. Um, but what's interesting about that is, whether you're watching it back later on, a lot of times we audition, we don't get to see what we do, but
Hmm.
now with self tapes, we do get to kind of see that. And so, um, it is kind of nice because you can check in right away and say,
Yeah.
great, I hit all the beats I wanted to hit or not. But it does take some getting used to, where, if I'm reading with Annie and then like right over here, I can kind of see myself moving and doing my things. It's kind of it's kind of a weird thing to get used to at first.
For
So,
sure.
not everybody's doing that, but I like it because then I can see where the frame is. I can see exactly how it's set up. And then I'm not relying on somebody else.
Hmm.
Um, you know what I mean? To make sure it
Yeah.
looks good.
Interesting. I feel, yeah, I guess I've gotten used to it because of like Zoom class over the pandemic. Like, because I don't even, doesn't even bother me to see me move, but I can see how that could be very easily distracting right away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the camera's better on the other side, but it's not, I mean, the new iPhone I have is perfect. Like, it works great on the front part.
A lot
Um,
of these cameras, I'll say, are like better than the phones we were running around with like 6 years ago.
yeah,
You know
for
what I
sure.
mean? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy how
Mhm.
much, how good they've gotten.
That's great.
I mean, I was watching a thing. Now it's been a while, but I listened to an interview with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia guys, and like the thing they shot, dude, it looks like
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
on grainy SD from like, you know what I mean? So the,
Yeah.
the point is like, I mean, that was a while ago, but the
Mhm.
the point is just, it's crazy how much is like, the advanced. What other stuff? I love the backdrop. I know it's a little pricey. What's the one that you?
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
it's called Clot Studios. It takes a
Okay.
while to ship to you. I think they're based in China, I want to say. But it's
Yeah.
hand painted and it's beautiful.
CLOT.
CLOT, yeah, Clot
Yeah.
Studios, and
Yeah.
it's super nice. The first one, make sure you add the code. The first one you get is half off, which is it's still expensive. I think it's like $400 and then it becomes $200. But it does make, like, if you get the right color and the right thing, it makes it pop.
Yeah.
I tried once a blue one, and what was weird is that it was so blue that it made my skin red. So just kind of be
Wow.
aware of like what your skin color is and like what could make
Yeah.
it work and not work. There's something weird about the camera. Like on my phone when I did a self tape, I could adjust it, but when I was doing like a callback or something where it was just on my laptop, that would just make me washed out. It was just super frustrating. So just make sure if you're spending big money, you do a little bit of research of what may look good, may not look good on you.
Yeah, check that out. I think Clot, that's, and then obviously there's cheaper ones on Amazon,
Hmm.
but it is interesting when I've done self tapes at my parents' place in Wisconsin. They have a really cool green wall that I use,
Ooh,
and it
cool.
looks so cool. Yeah, and
Hmm.
and I had that once for like a cop audition, and it worked so much better than like the blue backdrop I usually use.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm actually really happy that we're here.
Yeah.
So, for an actor, and depending on what their coloring is and how it works with what they like to wear for wardrobe,
Hmm.
I think a great backdrop that really works. Obviously, that's like secondary to the acting,
Sure.
but it can help the overall feel. Because one thing I did want to also add, I do feel like with self tapes, there's a little more room to add a little more of, not just props, I don't want to call it, but like parts to you that like might work in the scene. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Whether it's like you've got a drink in your hand, um, depends on the thing. And I heard, Jason Kennedy, the casting director, talk about this. He doesn't want you like swirling wine the whole time, like
Yeah.
so it's like obnoxious. But I do think it's like, there's things like that where you can have there's a little more leeway. But just the backdrop helps set the tone. So great. The Clot. What else,
Yeah,
Corbin?
and,
Yeah.
and the other thing, similar to you, the lights and all the setup, I think it's just good to make it look professional, and it's worth getting two lights, maybe even a third if you can. Um,
Yep.
but the best one that I have is it's a projector. Let me have the list here. It's the projector mount for it really it can be a laptop like stand or whatever, and it's just a tripod with a flat bed that you can put your laptop on. So when you're
Great.
in a self tape or sorry a callback, you can just adjust anything you want. So I remember I was in a commercial callback and they're like, "Can you just stand up real quick?" And I'm like, "Okay." Just like, and you can just crank it and you do it really quickly. And that's the great part. It's I bought one, and the adjustable knob for the legs of the tripod was like a spinning thing. I don't know. It wasn't one of those clamps. I really, really recommend people get the clamp, not the spinny one, because something about the spinny one, it didn't, because it's just metal poking into the other metal. The laptop slowly slid down. So whenever I was like doing a callback, and I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
There it goes. There it goes.
And so it's just not worth it. So I just returned it. I got it on Amazon. It's just there's a bunch of different options. I would just figure it out. And also the other thing too is figure out your height and to inches. So if you like, a lot of them are sold for like 45 inches, and that goes to my chest, and I'm only 5'11". So it's like just make sure that you know what your height is, so you don't just have to look up your nose the whole time.
No, and that's great because a lot of times with castings, you might do a self tape for the first call, like you said, but we might do a virtual callback where it's live, so it's not a self tape,
Yep.
but like and I just had that recently where we want to see kind of like full body or something afterwards. So it's like, and sometimes when people have to adjust and all these things, and it takes a long time, it's interesting because it is not really the acting, but it can kind of throw off the energy. And
Mhm.
we even had that with a guy once who like was having trouble logging off. And so we were like looking up his nose for like way longer, and he like couldn't find like the log off button. And it was just like, oh God,
Mhm.
please just like, find it. Like, um, so the smoothness of that, Corbin,
Yeah.
I think, and having something like that, I love that projector tripod stand. That's great. What else? Anything else that you really like?
Uh, I mean, all the other stuff is just, like getting a good clamp for your iPhone to mount onto a tripod. That one I like a lot too. It's another adjustable one. I really like being able to adjust things on the fly. So you can kind of move it up. You can move it so vertical. Like I said, if I want to do my slate, I can easily do that in just 2 seconds. You can also
Yeah.
adjust the size of it, so you can just quickly put it in and out, and you're done with your setup in about 2 minutes. Um, that's how I like to look at it. It's like, how can I get this finished? Because I'm gonna get a self tape every other day. I don't want to spend 20 minutes setting up everything. So like, let's make sure it's solid, and also I can put it away easily. So that's also important to me. I'm actually, one thing I am curious about with you, and that's basically all my list. But the only thing I got for like, because you, generally speaking, you don't want to have like a weapon or anything to like kind of make it look like it's scary, but you also don't want to make sure you're going to get hurt. So I bought
Yeah.
a comb, one of those flipping comb knives.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
I
like it.
I liked it because it helps, because it gives you that energy, but it's pretty obvious you're not going to hurt yourself because it's a comb.
Yep.
So I was just kind of curious if you have any props like that, the things that you just have in your back pocket that you kind of
Totally.
use, that is,
Well, what I was going to say, and then and to lead into that, which is I love when and it doesn't always happen, when I'm prepared with all this stuff, so
Mhm.
then I don't have to stress about it, and I can focus on, like we said earlier, the sides and memorizing. When you don't have all this stuff, then you're scrambling, you're running around, you're trying to find, your flip comb.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple things that I do have is like, um, and mostly this is generally stuff more for commercial auditions than TV and film auditions. But like, I bought a white lab coat,
Mm.
and I
I
loved
have
using
that.
that. I've used that a bunch. My wife's used that. We just clip it in the back for her. A clipboard that could be for scientists. That can also be kind of be for doctor. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that like I have. Those two things are kind of specific. But I recently had an audition for a TV show, and I was supposed to be a cyclist, and I've done some triathlons and bicycling, and I wore this bright bicycle shirt, for a TV show. Awesome. I wore it, and I ended up booking it. And I think it's because that top, obviously the acting was there, but that top, it was a cyclist shirt, which is what they wanted. They wanted a cyclist. So I'll go digging around and looking for stuff, to try to create the world. And so I think it's great to have that stuff on hand. So if you audition for like, cops a lot, I think it's great to have something, that looks like the world and feels like the world. And if it helps you, Corbin, or audience, then I think it also is great to have, if it helps get you into the world, right? That's really what we want to see. Is we want to see you, I had this audition, my friend Erica was casting this movie, and, I was like a cowboy. So I I tried to find the hat and I did all these things. And like, it still was a little like the part wasn't perfect for me, but I was like, okay, this is kind of helping. I kind of feel silly, but it's also kind of helping. But it's like trying to find that, I think, for yourself is really a cool thing to do, and kind of helps you get in the world. And with self-tapes, you have a little bit more freedom with that,
Yeah, I think it's good just to get those staples in. Like I think like cop roles I don't really get a lot of because I don't really exude cop, but I think it's good to have something in your back pocket, or that you can kind of pull out. Like I have the lab coat, I have a nurse outfit, I have a priest one. I think a priest one's an easy one where you just get on Amazon cool. As well,
yes,
it's just,
yes.
It just has that white thing.
Yes, the color,
So that that
and actually, another one for this play I'm doing, I don't know if the place is still around. There was a place in Pasadena that it did really cool glasses, like with different frames without prescription. I don't need it. But that's another like really like simple one that people could have. Is just like a pair of glasses. I know it probably shouldn't, but it definitely changes kind of people's energy. You know what I mean? That's just another one to think about. And actually for women, like wigs or different hairstyles is a big one. You know what I mean? I mean, like with my wife's hair, sometimes she's like, well, should I go straight? Should I go curly? It's a different amount of work. But I think that is like, just kind of, if I have a beard, or if I don't have a beard, it does change the initial perception. It doesn't change our acting, but I think all that stuff gets factored in.
Yeah, I mean, I just did an audition for a vampire role, and I was like, had a little bit of stubble, and I was like, I gotta shave it off. I can't not, like, you can't have a beard as a vampire unless it's very specific, like mutton chops or something. And you're going for a different look. But yeah, I think that kind of world is totally worth it.
And I remember there was a woman whose headshot we got who had like a photo like with one type of hair and then with another type of hair for like different roles, right? You know what I mean? Which I thought was really interesting, And so as long as you can get into that for the audition and it doesn't look bad or fake, I think that's kind of an interesting, way to get opportunities.
For sure. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. Well, we deep dove into self-tapes. I'm glad we did this. I know people, have questions about it and, are figuring it out and trying to figure it out. And like I said, I think it's a really cool, it can be a pain in the butt, especially if it's a quick turnaround, but there's also really, neat opportunities where you maybe don't have to be like LA or New York based, and you can do a self-tape if you're living somewhere else, as long as you can get there and stuff. So I think it's a pretty cool time with the technology, Corbin. And also you can do it affordably. You can do it like you can do the Clot background, you can do the Neewer lights, but there's also stuff that's like less affordable. As long as they can like see you clearly, as long as they can hear you clearly, the backdrop is simple, not too complicated. I think those are the most important things.
I think if you for me, I would just do the research, figure out what works in your budget, and then also being able to be adjustable. I think that was important for me when I was looking that stuff up. And really from there, you can just choose whatever. Anything's better than nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Awesome. Well, this was our first Acting 101 self-tape deep dive. We appreciate everyone listening, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the
Movie Spotlight Podcast.